Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Welcome to part 2 of project versus craft versus art. What is the best use of your child's time? We started talking about this in the last episode, and because Alison and I try really hard to keep these episodes to about 15 minutes or so, because we know people are busy, we had to divide it into multiple parts. So where did we leave off, Alison?
I think we did all the definitions between product, process, and craft. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the benefits of the process art and why we should be doing that instead of the crafts.
Yeah, I think we did.
Kind of touched on it a little bit.
We did. I think we touched on project being important because it's teaching your children critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And people can listen to more about that in part 1. But I do think we have to devote some time to the importance of process over product, where art is about the process and a craft is really only about the product. So what do you want to say?
Well, I want to talk about why, because I don't know if people understand what the benefits are of this, of the process that the children go through when they're creating art. There's so many, not to mention, like, we all know the fine motor skills and stuff, but there's like cognitive skills.
Well, that's it.
Social, emotional.
Art is about thinking and social emotional skills.
Yeah.
But those thinking skills, they have to come up with something. They have to be creative. Who was said, oh my gosh, there's somebody who said, I think it may be Brene Brown, who is a researcher and just a really great scholar. And she had one of those really famous TED Talks that went viral. If you've never heard of her, you should look her up, Brene Brown. But anyway, she was talking about creativity. And I think it was she who said, if you don't use your creativity, it doesn't just die. It like poisons you.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I thought like if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing.
No, like if you don't use it, it's going to like somehow destroy you.
Oh, wow.
And that's children need
really
to use
devastating.
it. Yeah, children need to. And they're so full of creativity. Why do we start to squash it when they're so little?
But we do squash. Like a lot of adults squash it. And I find it so sad that happens. Like, like if you walk through the school that I work at, there's my bulletin board, which is actually called the Tiny Tigers Art Gallery because the kids are allowed to put up whatever they want up there. And it's displayed like an art gallery. And then you go down the hall and you're like, oh, these kids are 1 year older than mine. And it's all craft. And you're like, oh, but look at what they did. Look what they're capable of.
It's really sad. And it's a sad symptom of a lot of things that I think are going on in our educational system in the United States, where we're still trying to force children into boxes, even though we keep saying developmentally appropriate practice says that they don't belong in these boxes, that every child develops differently. You know, it's part of that whole I'm going to force you into a box. And I think that people think that a craft is evidence of learning when in fact a project or art are actually evidence of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. There is this great video that it's from a parent's point of view. This might be a little kind of veering off topic a little bit, but I just thought of it, where this dad, it's a cartoon, but it's like a dad and a child are walking to school every day, and the dad's late every day. And every day there's this man who plays the violin on a hill, and the kid wants to sit and dance in front of the violin. And the dad goes, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And then by day, 10, the kid just is so depressed because he can't do what he wants to do. He can't enjoy the art that this music that this man is making, and then finally the father sees his child and how it affected his child. And he goes, we do need to stop every day and listen to the man play the violin because that's what life is about. And then it makes not only the child happy, it makes the adult happy. And I think that's kind of an example of how we're squashing like people's creativity and people's self-expression, even just by day to day like occurrences, like we're late for work, we're late for school, we're not stopping to smell the roses kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know?
I think part of it too is when a child brings a paint blob,
Right.
which isn't, by the way, a blob to them necessarily,
No.
but they
No.
bring home a paint blob and the adults can't relate to it. And I think that's part of the problem too. The
Right.
adults can relate to certain organized forms. And so that's what the adults want to see. And
Yeah.
and that paint blob, it came from your child's own thoughts, which really is what should be celebrated if we want them to be thinkers.
Yeah.
Process is really important. The process of digging into art and art materials, the process of thinking and creating, just because I can't relate to it as an adult doesn't mean it doesn't have meaning to the child.
I think the process of feeling what you're feeling, like while you're doing this, the emotions that go through it, like when a child first touches paint for the first time, the emotion of that, or how you're feeling when you're like, I'm going to use this color, like, or press really hard with the marker, or whatever it is you feel. I mean, that process alone is so important, just to feel.
Yeah, I think adults need to step aside and remember that just because you don't know what it is doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And when children learn to value a process, they become more patient. They become more willing to go through processes.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to go through processes as they get older.
Yeah. That's true. And if you're not allowing them.
So we're at 6.5 minutes already. So I think what we need to do, Alison, is tell parents what they should be looking for and asking for. What do you think?
Okay. Like examples of what they should see?
Yeah, I think that parents, if you are someone who has an early learner and is visiting preschools, if you walk in and you see all sorts of crafts that look very similar or alike, run for your life.
Yeah, walk away. Walk away now.
Yeah, okay. Run for your life. Get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And if you are already in a setting and you're getting a lot of crafts at home, I think you need to send the message to the teachers that they don't often get, which is you don't value that.
Right. You can question it. Question them. Talk to your teachers. I think you should really look for a lot of like projects, science-based things. Do they have the real life things in their classrooms?
Yes, real life things, so important. When children get a toy and they only want the box, there's a reason for that. They're intrigued by real life items.
Yeah. Yeah. And look for that when you go in. I mean, because that's a big part of creativity, I think.
Another benchmark of a project and something you should look for is that if a topic makes for a good project, there are people that the children can talk to about it. So if your students, if your kids are going on field trips to talk to community helpers, or your school is bringing community helpers in,
yes.
If your kids are learning about something like clothing and your school sends them a note saying, hey, does anyone have an occupation or a hobby having to do with clothing or fabrics? Could you come in and talk to the class? This is good stuff.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Right?
And that's also showing how dedicated teachers are. You want dedicated teachers. So, I mean, that you want to see that kind of stuff. I would want to see them, like, you want to see easels and finger paints and
I want to see easels
Play-Doh.
being used. I want to see easels being used. I don't want to see easels sitting in a classroom that I've never seen a child use.
Right. You want to see it look a little messy because easels get really messy. So if it looks like brand spanking new, like came out of the box, and it's now January, February, it's the middle of the year, and it looks like it's never been used, it's there just for show or there to hang the projects on to dry. But a real easel,
so sad.
I've seen it. I've seen
Me
teachers
too.
do that.
I'm laughing out of crying.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because, oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. You want to see like natural stuff, natural things like like my kids in my class, we paint with sticks, we paint with leaves, we paint with things.
You want to see things coming home or being hung up in the classroom, and you have to discuss with your child what they've created.
Yeah.
Because you can't look at it and tell. If you're looking at that thing and going, penguin, you can bet your child didn't create that on their own.
Right.
At the ages of like 4 and below.
Right.
You know what?
Right.
Oh my gosh. I was in a school and actually I'm thinking 3 schools in the past 3 months maybe. And I'm looking at crafts that were allegedly done by 1.5-year-olds.
Oh yeah, no.
What?
I don't even think that's possible.
Well,
but
yeah. If the teacher takes the kid's hand and goes, "Here, we're gluing it here," like I don't.
Yeah. But like I've also worked at a school where if it didn't look exactly like the teacher wanted or like the example, the teacher would change it.
Yes,
so
I've seen that too.
If you really do see on a bulletin board every single art project look the same,
run for your life.
Run, because imagine how how your child feels when he knows I glued the eye up here and it's down here and it got changed.
Your children have a lot of years to be right and wrong.
Oh yeah.
Early childhood education isn't the time.
Right.
They need to learn that their thoughts and their work has value so that they'll develop some self-esteem. And crafts, I hate to tell you, they don't develop self-esteem.
Well, crafts make you feel like you want the kids to feel successful.
Right.
And I feel like a craft does not help them feel successful.
No.
It just it helps them feel like failures.
It helps all the adults feel successful. Everyone go get a therapist because it shouldn't be about you.
Yeah.
I get really like direct when I talk about this. I can't.
I know. Well, it's so frustrating.
It is. It makes my head hurt. I think so. We're coming up on our time limit here for these episodes, but I think we've pretty much said it. So to sum up, I think, Alison, what we're telling people is, wherever you have your children, there should be more value placed on doing hands-on projects.
Yes.
And creative, self-created, with no product from the adult in mind art than crafts. And I hope that everyone who's listening to us will help us to skew the expectation that crafts should be created and that they have any value, because I'm sorry, but they have very little value at all.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sorry.
I'm not sorry about that, no.
No, I'm... I think we ended another episode about not being sorry. Apparently,
sorry,
you and
sorry.
Yeah, you and I are sorry, not sorry, a whole bunch.
A whole lot.
Yeah. So if you want to find out how often we're sorry, not sorry, you should subscribe to this podcast. You can find out about my blog, my book, and how to contact me on helpingkidsachieve.com. You can also contact Alison. Tell them how.
Okay. My email is AlisonJoy79@gmail.com.
You can email her and be like, I heard you're sorry, not sorry, and it's all very true.
It's very true. Yeah.
And if you subscribe, you'll find out if that's the case in our next episode.